Father, Lent's depressing. And my life is already depressing. It's already hard enough. Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to talk more about depressing? It's Father Brice, and I want to talk a little bit today about why we do Lent at all. What if I told you that Lent had a purpose? And what if I told you that the point of Lent wasn't pain, that the point of Lent wasn't penance, but that the point of Lent was joy? The point of Lent was to lead you and me to joy. Not a punishment, but a purpose. In the letter to the Hebrews, St. Paul or whoever wrote Hebrews is writing to Christians who are struggling, to Christians who are having problems keeping the faith and holding on to the faith in Jesus Christ, what they have received. And in Hebrews chapter 12, he writes this: "Run with perseverance the race that is set before you." Run with perseverance. Keep running. I know your life is hard, but don't give up. And how are you going to not give up? What are you going to do to not give up? St. Paul, or whoever wrote Hebrews, he says, look to Jesus. Look to Jesus, who, for the sake of the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising its shame, and is seated at the right hand of God. Look to Jesus in Lent. Look to Jesus in your life, so that you might remember the joy. Jesus went through Lent. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, tempted by the devil. Jesus spent 40 hours or more or less enduring his passion. Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus was tried. Jesus walked the way of the cross, whipped, beaten, scourged, spat upon. How did he endure? When he knelt down and sweated blood, how did he endure? For the sake of the joy that was set before him. Jesus had his eyes fixed not on the earth, not on the pain, not on that which is depressing. Because y'all, life is hard. Life is many times painful. And Jesus said, I am going to look to the goal. I am going to look to heaven. I am going to look to my Father. And I'm going to remember why I'm doing this. And so you and I, when we're in the middle of the pain, when we're in the middle of the pain of our fasting, or the pain of our mortifications, or the pain of getting sick, or our parents who are now taken care of, or difficulties in relationships, the Bible tells us, look to Jesus, look to the cross, and remember the joy. The last part of that verse, look to Jesus, who is now sitting at the right hand of the Father. And that means at least two things. Number one, it means that Jesus is interceding for us, that Jesus is praying for us, that Jesus is for us. Not only is he cheering us on, but he's here with us, giving us the strength, so long as we open our hearts to accept it, so long as we go to prayer, so long as we get in our cars and drive to church, just sit before the Blessed Sacrament, or just receive communion even when we don't feel it, knowing that God is close to us. And number two, Jesus won. Because he focused on the joy, he persevered through the pain and is now seated at the right hand of the Father. And I've got to tell you a secret, y'all. Like when we look at the joy, when we focus on the joy set before us in the middle of the suffering, something happens. The suffering, it kind of turns into joy. The suffering is in a sense transformed, because I know that this suffering means something. I know that this suffering isn't useless. I know that the desert of Lent is going to lead me to the garden of paradise. Because Lent isn't a punishment, but Lent has a purpose. That the desert of Lent will lead me to the garden of paradise. Have a great Lent.